In Salesforce, you could write the cleanest code and solve for the most complex situations. But if you don't give your users a good user experience and an intuitive way to trigger that beautiful code you've written, then it defeats the purpose. When we think about providing a good user experience, we should rely on a few different design patterns within Salesforce. In today's video, we go over one of those patterns, invoking code from a flow using a custom action. Welcome to Ship the Force. The design pattern we'll be going over today is the Action Flow Apex class pattern. This is a pattern that you should be looking to use anytime you have a requirement where a user needs to interact with the UI to trigger some logic in the background. The example that we're going to use is that a user is on a contact record and they click on a button labeled Update Contact Description on the UI. This button click will then kick off a flow which we'll be building out using our Lightning Flow Builder, which will then invoke a method in our Apex class that holds the logic to update the record. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and build this out. We'll need to create our flow first, then our Apex class, and then last we can create our custom action that we'll use to kick off the process. In this example, we're going to give the user the ability to click a button which will automatically update the contact record that they're on. So first, let's go to our Lightning Flow Builder. Let's go ahead and click on New Flow, and when we do that, we'll choose to use a screen flow because we want to trigger this flow from a custom action. The first element we want to add to this flow is the Get Records Data element, so let's click and drag that into our canvas. This is so that we can get our current record into the flow to work with. For this step, we're going to add a filter condition, which will be to query by the current record's ID. We'll first need to create a resource that can hold that ID. This will be a variable named record ID, and note that the naming of this variable is very important as the custom action will automatically populate this variable for us when the user clicks on it without us needing to tell it to do so. The data type is going to be text because we can store our ID as a string. And the last thing here is that we'll make it available for input and click on Done. Let's go ahead and add this step to the path, and then we can save our flow. Okay, so the next step we would add here is an action to invoke our custom method within our Apex class. But before we do that, we need to modify our method to make it invocable by this flow. So to do that, let's go to our developer console and open up our Apex class. We're starting off with an empty method, but let's go ahead and add some logic. The first thing we want to do is make this method invocable. To do that, we simply have to add the annotation of invocable method to this method. We can add a label if we want and a description. In the method itself, we're going to go ahead and pass the contacts from the flow. To do this, we need to create a list. That's our contact parameter that we're going to be passing from the flow. And then we want to add some logic. For this, let's just simply update the contact that we get from the flow. So now we have our simple method here that's going to get the contact from the flow and then update it with the description of the description is updated. Let's go ahead and save that and hop back to our Lightning flow. Let's go ahead and add the action element to our canvas. Once we do that, if we look under uncategorized and click into our search box, we can see that our newly modified method is available to reference in our flow. Let's select the method and add a label to it. Under Set Input Values, we'll find the parameter we added to our custom method. We want to include this so that we can pass the method the contact record we got from our previous Get Record step. Once we do that, let's click on Done. I'm going to go ahead and save and activate this flow. Now that it's activated, we'll be able to reference this flow when we go to create our custom action for our contact object. To do that, let's go to our object manager and find our contact object. Once there, click on buttons, links, and actions. Because our users are using Lightning Experience and also because we want to kick off a flow, we need to create an action instead of a button or a link. If you were using Classic, then you'd want to create a button instead. However, keep in mind if you do that, then you won't be able to directly use a flow either. Let's go ahead and choose the action type of flow and then choose our flow, which is update contact flow. Okay, once we do that, we can set our label, which is what our users will see on their UI. And then we can save it. Okay, now that we have our custom action created, this will kick off the flow, which will in turn invoke our logic, which updates our contact record. Let's make this available to our users. So with that, I'm going to add the action to our page layout. Let's go ahead and navigate to the page layout, then click on Mobile and Lightning Actions, and click and drag our newly created action to the Lightning Action Experiences section. Once we do that, we can test it all out. So to test this out, I'm really just going to go to any one of my test contact records that I have created in this org. Let's go to Arthur's song here, click into it. The first thing I'm going to check is to make sure that the action was actually added to the page layout. In the upper right-hand corner, we can see this update contact description action was added correctly to the layout. Next, let's go ahead and make sure that our description field for this record is blank. All right, it is. That's going to be good because that's what we're going to be populating with this flow and with the logic that we have running in the back end. And then we can go ahead and click on the update contact description. Once we do that, we can see that our flow has successfully finished. So that is a good sign. If we click out of there and go ahead and refresh, if we go back to details, we can see that this record has now been updated with the description of the description has been updated. And this comes directly from the method that we made invocable that we are calling from our flow, which is being triggered by this custom action. All right, looks like everything is working like we want it to. Now, I do realize this example's logic was pretty straightforward in nature, but as you can imagine, using this design pattern, you can give a lot of power to your users while providing a pretty good user experience. I'd recommend opening up one of your Trailhead orgs and playing around a bit with this design pattern. If you have any questions, you can always email me at shiptheforce@gmail.com or just leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And once again, thanks for watching Ship the Force.